Hello, my name is Bailey and welcome to this video. I am doing my April wrap-up today, and I have a few things to say before we get into me actually talking about the books, because this is officially to date my best reading month ever, quantity-wise. Quality is a whole nother story because quality was not there, to be honest, in general this month, but quantity, this is the most books I've ever read. Up until this point, the most books I've ever read in a month was either 6 or 7. There are some months in the past that I don't remember, but I know for sure that the most I've ever read is at least 6, maybe 7. But this month I read 14 books, which I guess I'm one of the cool kids now because I read in the double digits. Like, I'm so cool now, don't talk to me. I think because of this whole quarantine thing, I've been taking so many walks, so I've listened to a lot of audiobooks this month just because I've been walking, so there's nothing else to do. I'm overheating already. Fantastic. So yeah, I read 14 things and they were all pretty mediocre if I'm gonna be honest. So we'll talk about those. I also did statistics this month. Not too many because I'm not that invested in statistics, to be honest, but I did a few, so we'll go over those first. So I read 14 books, like I said, and the amount of pages I read in total was 4,027, which is pretty good to me. Since I don't do statistics normally, I can't really give you a comparison to things, but that's pretty good to me. And my average rating this month was 2.95 stars out of 5, and that is not good, to be honest. I'm keeping these decimals, by the way, because I rate in decimals sometimes, but that's not good. It's not even 3 stars. That just kind of shows you that I didn't love anything this month. I liked some things, and I was fine with some things, but I didn't love anything. And then my average page count per book was 287 pages, 0.65. That 0.65 is not important, but I thought I'd keep it in for accuracy. So let's go into breaking down my star ratings for this month. I had no 1 stars, I had 4 2 stars, I had 8 3 stars, and 2 4 stars. And 0 5 stars. So pretty great, pretty great. I actually have not rated anything 5 stars this year, so this wasn't the month. Even though I read 14 things, not a single one of them was a 5 star. So will I read a single 5-star book this year? Dude, I have no idea. I've kind of lost hope. I read one of my 5-star predictions this month, and I only rated it 3 stars, which I'll talk about later. So I have no hope, to be honest, at rating things 5 stars right now. So if you think you can if you think you've got something that's gonna be a 5-star for me, I want to hear it. But yeah, those are all of the statistics and breakdowns I'm gonna do. We're gonna get straight into this. So yeah, the first book I read was One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is a YA. Some call it a thriller, I'd call it more of a mystery drama sort of a thing. So this book follows these 5 main characters, Simon, Bronwyn, Addie, Nate, and white bread, what was his name? Connor? Nope, it's Cooper. I always mix up his name because he's just such a bland white boy. So it follows those guys, and they are all sent into detention one day, and only 4 of them come out because Simon is killed in detention. Now all 4 of these other students are suspects, but none of them have done it, so it follows them, their little murder squad, trying to crack the case, because they all have a reason for wanting to murder him, because Simon had run a gossip site, and on the next day, gossip about each of these characters was supposed to come out, so they all have a reason to want to murder him, but none of them have murdered him. So we think. I only gave this 2 stars, maybe 2.5 on a good day, but it was not the best. But I do have the sequel and Karen M. McManus' other book here because I'm going to be reading them. I tried to read this before. I got to page 70 before, last year or 2 years ago, and I hated it. So this time I listened to the audiobook and actually listened to it straight through while I was cleaning my room. And I would definitely recommend, if you're gonna read this, read the audiobook because it's so cringy that reading it's kind of not a good time, but if you want to consume the story, listen to the audiobook because the cringy antics come across better with the audiobook. Also, the person who narrates for Nate, his voice is so good on the ears, you know? So good. So my actual Goodreads review for this book was just a character breakdown. It's very tropey, and the characters are very much like caricatures, and the characters all kind of fit a character archetype, because I've heard this being compared to The Breakfast Club. I've never watched The Breakfast Club, so I can't really confirm or deny that, but I feel like it makes sense. So I will tell you my character analysis here. Bronwyn and Nate are the best characters in this book. They are the most in-depth, and also their romance is a very big part of the story. This story is very light thriller mystery. To be honest, it focuses a lot more on the characters, especially Bronwyn and Nate's blooming romance. I don't have any complaints over their characters. They are very, very stereotypical. Bronwyn is the nerd and Nate is the bad boy, and then the nerd and the bad boy getting together is kind of stereotypical. Aside from that, it was fun to read about them, but Addie and Cooper, Cooper, the worst. A side tangent before I get into those other two characters, sexuality is used as a plot twist in this book. That doesn't bother me per se, but it does bother some people, so I thought I'd tell you that. But Cooper is the most bland-ass, untoasted white bread character I've ever read in my life. Like, I can barely remember his name. He's so boring. I hate those, like, noble types, or it's just, like, this loyal, super nice person. I hate them. They're so vanilla and boring, and that's exactly what he is, and anytime it was his POV, I just lose my mind, because he also has a southern accent. So the audiobook narrator has this southern accent, and he's like, oh my god, we gotta go solve the case and get the justice. That's not a southern accent, but, like, I'm trying. He's such a bland character, and because of that, I didn't care about his struggles, and he barely has any struggles. He just is he's just like around, and he's like trying to get me to care, and I don't. He just went on and on about his bland interests and his bland self, and his personality was literally non-existent. Hated him. And then Addie I hated even more because her character growth was so on the nose. Like, she starts out this book and she's with this dude, this really controlling dude in a controlling relationship, and then she gets out of this relationship and suddenly the author is shoving down our throats that she is an independent woman and she doesn't need no man. Like, I'm okay with sending that message, but can you not send the message by, like, slapping in my face? Like, I don't know. That was not fun for me. Also, she's dumb as fuck. She should be dead. This is not, like, it's a spoiler, but I'm not going to give you any specifics about the scene. So, she's in a house recording a conversation with the person who's behind this whole murder thing, and they notice she's in the house, and so she runs out. Mind you, somebody is in the car on the street. Her ally is in a car on the street. So instead of running to the street to that car so that if she gets attacked, they see her and can grab the phone or help her, instead of doing that, she runs into the woods and starts screaming, basically alerting the murderer or bad person of where she is, and she doesn't die. I don't know. She should be dead. She's an idiot. And then she gets commended for her bravery at the end. I'm like, there's a difference between bravery and stupidity. I liked enough of this book to want to continue, and, like, it's an addicting story in the sense that, like, I was entertained, but it wasn't great. Yeah, that was my first read of the month, and it was not great, but I'm glad I read it finally because my friend has been pestering me to read it for a while, so finally I did. The next book I read was The Name of the Star by Maureen Johnson. This is one of Maureen Johnson's earlier books. She also wrote Truly Devious, which people know more about this book than this one. This is one of her earlier books, kind of makes sense. So this book I gave 3 out of 5 stars. It was 3 out of 5 stars, and I say that in the nicest way possible. Like, it was a good book. There was nothing that I can see that's glaringly wrong with it. It just wasn't great. That's why it's a 3. Like, 3 isn't bad, but it's also just, like, it didn't blow me away. But I really enjoyed this book, and I ordered the sequel, and I cannot wait to read it. This book follows a girl named Rory, and she goes through a near-death experience and then comes out of it being able to see ghosts. And while this is going on, she has moved to London, and she's going to a boarding school, and these Jack the Ripper copycat murders start up, and she becomes the next target of the copycat killer. And she has to join up with this ghost squad, and it's good. I like this a lot. This is a, like, paranormal, it's a YA paranormal thriller, I'd say, and I really like this. For somebody who, like, reads thrillers a lot, this probably isn't gonna be that, like, scary or thrilling, but I don't read thrillers a lot, and I loved it. Like, it was thrilling to me. It, like, long lasting made me scared. I'm like, there could be ghosts anywhere. It stressed me out, and I think, like, that's a good effect of a book, if it can, like, make you think later and makes you not forget it. I really like that part of this book. I thought that the writing itself was a little bit, like, not juvenile, but just not, like, that refined or that good. I don't remember what year this came out, but it's, like, in the early 2000 teens or, like, late 2009 or something like that. And you get, it shows. The character types are very, like, very much of that time. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say here. Like, the female main character is a little bit basic. Another weird, like, thing that pissed me off is that, like, a lot of characters in this book shorten their name for some reason. Like, the main character, Rory, her actual name is Aurora. There's another character called Boovana who goes by Boo. And then the roommate, there's another roommate who goes by a shortened name. I don't even remember her name, though. But, like, my point being is that there's so many characters that go by shortened names that was just very unrealistic and kind of bothered me for some reason. I'm just like, if you wanted to give them shorter names, just like originally give them the shorter name. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to have the longer name. Like having one character go by a shorter name of a longer name makes sense because like that happens in the real world, but like 3 people who are all close to each other, don't do that. It just was a little unrealistic. I don't know why I'm harping on realisticness in like a paranormal thriller, but like it just bothered me personally. I think that like Maureen Johnson's really good at setting ominous moods, to be honest. Like, even when we are in danger around this murder in the daylight, I was stressed out because, like, yes, we're in the daylight, so you kind of have that automatic response, be like, oh, you're safe. The ominous mood was still there, and I just really, really loved that about this book. Like, it had me, like, nervous, and I really enjoyed that. So, in general, I really like this, and I'm excited to continue with the series. The next book I read was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is the first book in the Caraval trilogy, and I gave this 2 out of 5 stars, and I was really disappointed. Basically, this book follows Donatella and Scarlet, and they are both sisters, and in this world, there's this thing called Caraval, and it is this, like, carnival, like, circusy thing that the audience participates in. It's like a game, and a big thing about it is that it's all just a game, but maybe it's not because that's the whole point of the book. And after years and years of Donatella writing to Caraval Master Legend, she is given 3 invitations to go to Caraval. Herself, and her fiance are supposed to go. She ends up going with her sister, and the sailor dude. When they actually get to Caraval, it turns out that Scarlet is going to have to be competing in Caraval to save her sister, in a sense, or find her sister, because her sister has become the final objective of the game. In a sense, you have to find her to win the game, yada yada yada. This book was a big disappointment because, like, I really, really liked the middle portion of this book. The front, like, the first 100 to 150 pages was a little bit dry for me because I really don't give a shit about the sister relationship in this book. Like, the first 150 pages, it's just Scarlet going on about how much she needs to find Donatella and she needs to protect Donatella. I'm like, can you make decisions for yourself, please? Also, it kind of gets annoying because the whole thing about this is, like, it's all a game, but, like, this book is saying it's not a game, you know what I mean? And it's like, if you've seen the last Jumanji movie where, like, the old dudes don't accept that they're in a game for a while, it's that sort of vibe, and it's really annoying because it's like, dude, you've noticed that, like, it's kind of high stakes. Can you please get in the game? Like, it's annoying watching someone deny something that's so blatantly obvious for hundreds of pages. So I didn't really enjoy that Scarlet doesn't really do anything for herself for a while. And then when, like, the romance and the actual, like, whimsical stuff kicks in, like, the vibes are good. I loved the vibe of this book in the middle. Like, I loved the actual Caraval shit. And, like, the games and the magic was super fun. And the romance was so cute until up to, like, here, it all gets ruined. Because see this thing on the cover? It says, remember, it's only a game. That's basically telling you that this book is the trope, it was only a dream, just instead, it's all a game and nothing's gonna matter. The end of this book was so frustrating because it basically takes back all of our progress throughout the rest of the book because it turns around and says it was all a game. And it might sound, like, dumb to you if you haven't really read this book. If you read it, you understand what I'm saying. Like, it's a game, but this whole book up until that point was telling us it's not a game. But then at the end it twisted again, it is a game, and then nothing we did even had any impact. Like, any deaths that happened weren't actually deaths, and any impact, and, like, the thing that we were fighting against is not even a thing. So, like, there's no conflict in this book, and it frustrates me because I'm like, that's such a cop-out. Like, it was a 4-star up until that point. I had to give it 2 stars. I was just like, what the fuck? And I don't even think I am explaining this well to you, and I don't think I can, but it just frustrated me that, like, we don't make any progress in this book because at the end it takes it all back. I think that's the best I'm ever gonna do, trying to describe that to you right now. So yeah, I was really disappointed, but I will be continuing with the series because I've heard it gets better, but I've also heard it gets worse. So I don't know. I've already been filming for 20 minutes. I'm so bad at filming wrap-ups. The next book I read was Every Heart Adore by Shauna McGuire. This is the first book in the Wayward Children series. Before I read this book, I'd already read the second book last year, and I gave it like 3 stars. And I will be talking about that in a second because I reread it after this book. But I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 to 5 stars, and I really liked it. I didn't expect to because I did not like the second book when I read it originally. So if you don't know what the series is, basically this book follows these kids who, when they were younger, these magical doors opened up and they went to different worlds, and now they've come back to Earth, and then they've gone to Eleanor West's home for wayward children. And they're, like, being reacquainted with the real world after being in these fantasy worlds, and the people at this specific home are trying to go back to their magical worlds, but it's very rare to actually have your door open up again. So that's like the setting of this. And this book follows Nancy specifically, and there's like a murder mystery in this that I didn't even know was a thing when I hear people like talk about this book, but I loved it so much. I truly don't know how to explain my love of this book. Also, by the way, for representation, there are a lot of LGBTQ plus characters in this book, but our main character is specifically asexual, I do believe. I don't think she's aromantic because she does like romantic-y things, but she is asexual to my knowledge, so that's kind of some fun representation. But the murder mystery element of this was really fun because the worlds are so varied. Like, there's some dark worlds and some like fluffy fun worlds, and our kind of like squad of friends are all kind of from darker worlds, so they are automatically suspects in the kind of murder thing. The other kids think that they are the murderers just because they were from darker worlds. So it was really fun seeing all these kind of like angsty characters trying to solve this murder even though everyone thinks that they're the murderers. I thought it was just super fun. Again, the mystical vibes were so much fun. There was like not gore but kind of gore in these books, which I didn't expect, but it's not too bad, so just like know that. But I just really liked it, and it was a really fun short read, and I cannot wait to continue with the rest of the books. I have read this one and the second one, so I have the rest of the series from book 3 on to read. But yeah, this was good. I'm about to talk to you about the second book though, because I also read Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which is the second book in the Wayward Children series. And I read this last year and gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and this time around I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm slowly inching my rating up because I did like this more this time. I think it's because I read the first book and you get to see those characters, like Jack and Jill, who are the main characters of the second book, in the first book, and I kind of really liked seeing them afterwards. Like, Jack is my favorite character, and I liked seeing more of her in the first book, so seeing her more there made me love her even more in the second book. The second book follows Jack and Jill, and it follows their world. Like, when they were in that world, their like mystical world, it happens before the first book. It makes sense. It's their backstory of a sorts. Like, I like this one a lot more this time. I still have the same critiques. Like, at the end, Jill fucks up, like she always is. I hate Jill so much. She's the worst character ever. But there's no, like, there's no justice for something that happens at the end. I wouldn't say it's bury your gays, but it's like, it gives me bury your gays vibes, basically. Because a queer character is killed off, and there is not even justice for that character. We kind of just move on from it, and it really bothered me. These two people are together, and this other person kills part of that relationship. It was a queer relationship. And then the other person in the relationship defends the murderer instead of, like, you know, getting justice or allowing justice for their other half of their relationship, which I get, like, maybe I can understand somewhat why they would do that, but also it bothered me because I'm like, let the bitch go. Jill is the worst. Jill can go. I can't stand her. But I love Jack so much that I will continue reading their books, because they have another book that follows them specifically, and I can't wait to read that one because I'm really curious to see what's going on, because I'm pretty sure, like, Down Among Sticks and Bones occurs before the first book, and then their next book occurs after the first book, if that makes sense. I'm so excited to see what's going on in the rest of the series. But yeah, I think I'm kind of hooked on it now, and I cannot wait to read the rest of the books. I thought it was kind of interesting that my rating kind of went up with this book, because I loved it a lot more the second time around than I did the first time around, so it was kind of interesting to see. Maybe one day it'll be a 4-star because it seems to be inching up 0.5 as I reread it, so maybe one day it'll be a full 5 stars if I keep rereading it. I'll keep you posted. The next 3 books I'm going to talk about, like, kind of together because they are the last 3 books in the Shiver Quartet. If you don't know, it was a trilogy originally. It ended with the book Forever, but then this was tacked on years later. So yeah, I read all of these this month, and I finished the Shiver series officially. So this series is a YA paranormal romance sort of thing. It has werewolves and shit. So these books generally follow Grace, who is a human who fell in love with this wolf that would always sit at the edge of the woods. And then one day she discovers that that wolf is also a dude. His name is Sam, and they fall in love, and it follows their, like, love story. And then as the series goes on, these 2 other characters, Isabel and Cole, are added in, and it's okay. It's okay. The first book I gave 4 to 5 stars, and then I gave Linger 3 stars, and I gave Forever 3 stars, and I gave this book 2 stars. So let's start with Linger, because it's the second book. This book was boring as fuck. It is 350 something pages, and nothing happens until, like, page 340. The first book is okay because they're falling in love and getting together, and then there's an actual conflict at the end that, like, builds up. But in this book, it like, the whole book is going by and nothing is happening. Like, nothing is happening. But then in the last like 10 pages, like everything happens and we don't really get much like actual conflict. At the end of this book, like a big plot turning thing happens. Like a big thing happens at the end of this book, but it takes like 350 pages for it to happen. And the whole time you know it's going to happen, you're just waiting and waiting and waiting for it to happen so you can have some kind of entertainment, but there's like nothing. I listen to all these books on audiobook, by the way, because I don't think I could actually have gotten through these by physically reading them because they're just, nothing happens in them. They're so boring. It was boring, but I gave it 3 stars because it was fine. You know what I mean? And I have the same complaint with Forever. It was, again, super, super boring. So there's this character named Shelby who is, like, not an antagonist, but, like, a bad person, or, like, on the opposing side. We're not rooting for Shelby in the first book. Like, she doesn't do anything. She's just, like, a bad force in the background, but she doesn't do a single thing. And then she suddenly comes back in this book, even though she wasn't in this book. And she is supposed to be a problem, but then she isn't until, like, the last scene. She, like, makes a mad dash to do something, and then she dies. Spoilers, but, like, it doesn't matter because she is irrelevant. It's irrelevant Shelby. I don't know why she's there. But again, this book, nothing happens in the plot until, like, the last 50 pages, and this is nearly 400 pages, and, like, again, nothing is happening the whole time. Like, there's werewolf antics, but no actual plot shit, and they're boring. So I would not recommend, if you're gonna read these, you have to listen to the audiobook because these are impossible to get through, I think, if you don't listen to the audiobook because nothing happens. But then Sinner comes around, and it is a great example of a shitty finale. I will say though, if this was, like, this is the original ending to the trilogy and it's a shitty ending, there's technically an open cliffhanger of an ending, and it doesn't really wrap anything up, and it's not satisfying. So I'm just like, I don't know why you would end a series like this. Like, you have to at least wrap things up and make it satisfying to read. Like, this is a shitty book, but at least it wraps shit up at the end. Like, it confirms what you already know when you end this book, because you can assume by, like, what kind of book this is, how it ends. But it doesn't actually confirm it in this book. You have to read this one to actually technically confirm that, and I just think that it's kind of bad. Like, you don't know if one character is going to survive at the end of this book, and you're just like, why are you leaving me hanging, Maggie Stiefvater? Like, where's the ending? Is she dead? I don't know. 2 characters I loved in the original, like, trilogy were Isabel and Cole, and they are the main characters of this book, and this book completely ruined Isabel's character. She was a bitch in the main series, but it was, like, I was okay with it because there's bitchy people out there. I can be a bitchy person. It's fine. This book, she became, like, rude for no reason and bitchy for no reason. This book basically has no content, by the way. The werewolf element of this book is irrelevant. There's no point to Cole being a werewolf in this book. By the way, Cole's a werewolf. There's no point to it because he barely ever shifts. He doesn't uncontrollably shift because most of the werewolves shift uncontrollably, but he does not. So him being a werewolf doesn't really matter, and it kind of makes the paranormal part of this irrelevant. But Isabel is the worst character ever, and the thing I have a problem with this book is that, like, she uses Cole throughout this whole book. She's like, you can't call me whenever, but whenever I need you, like, you have to answer the phone immediately or I hate you. She doesn't let him lean on her in any way emotionally, but she wants to lean on him when she needs him. And at the end of this book, because you can probably assume it, they get together. It's been like an on and off thing with them this whole time, and they get together, but I think it's ridiculous because I think it kind of perpetuates the stereotype, or like the idea that you can fuck with and screw somebody over time and time again, but like if you crawl back to them, like they'll let you back into their lives. But it's like, no, sometimes you fuck up too much and people don't want you in their life anymore. Like, sometimes you are a trash human being and people don't want you anymore. And that's the case with this girl, because she is the worst character ever, because she's just so mean and rude. And she's a user, and I just hated her, and I don't want to talk about this book anymore because I don't think I'm articulating well. So we're gonna move on, but just know it was bad. And it was, like, nothing happened in this book either. The only thing I like about this book is Cole, because his character's okay, but he also, meets this guy named Leon, and I like seeing their, like, friendship sort of, like, bloom in this book. That was fun to read. But other than that, this book was bad. This is going so weirdly, okay. The next book I read was Tokyo Ghoul Volume 1. This is kind of like a palette cleanser, because I read Sinner at the end of the month, but I just tacked it on with those ones, because, you know, it makes sense. But I read this right after Forever, and I gave this 3 to 5 stars. Oh wait, I dropped all these books when I was taking a thumbnail, and they all got kind of destroyed, so kind of hurts my feelings. But I gave this 3 to 5 stars, and I think I'll try to give you a description of this. So this book follows Ken, and he is going on a date with this woman, and it turns out she is a ghoul, and she tries to kill him, and he ends up getting injured, and she ends up dying in this like fight thing, and they go to the hospital, and he ends up having an organ transplant to save his life, and they use the dead ghoul lady's organs and put them into him, and he becomes part ghoul. So yeah, there's ghouls in this world, by the way. And that's what this book is, and I think I wanted to love this, and I've heard a lot of good things about this, and like it's angsty vibes. It's the perfect vibes for me, you know what I mean? It has the perfect aesthetic for me, but I think the problem I had with this is just it's such a short morsel of a story that I couldn't get into it, and like I didn't feel anything. I didn't have enough time to get acquainted with the characters or the world to really feel much for it. So like I really want to continue on because I'm really interested in this world and the story, but this was too little of the story to really capture my like feelings and like get me on the hook with it, you know what I mean? I really can't say much because I don't know enough about this book from reading this book to say much. Because I just don't know much about the characters. I don't know much about where it's going. I think that's the problem. It's just it's so small of a morsel that I can't really feel any type of way about it. So it is literally just like fine. 3 stars, it was fine. There's this one female character in this book that I loved a lot just because she like looks so badass. I did like the art of this book, but in general I don't feel any type of way about this or this series at this moment, but I do want to continue on with it. The next book I read for the reading rush, and that is The Sun Is Also a Star. I read 2 things for the reading rush, and I'll talk about the next one next. I gave this 3 to 5 stars, and this was in a 5-star predictions video of mine. Don't watch it because I hate it, but I did predict that I would give this 5 stars in that video, and I did not. I gave this 3 to 5 stars, and it was just, I don't know. This book caused me a crisis. This book is about this girl and this guy. Their names are Natasha and Daniel, and Natasha is going to be deported in a day. Like, she has 1 day left in these states, and it basically follows Daniel and her falling in love in a day because she does not believe in love, and he is convinced he can make her fall in love with him in a day. So it's a romance, but like hard-hitting. Yeah. I gave this 3 to 5 stars because, like, obviously from the description you can kind of tell this is all about like fate and destiny and shit, so there's a lot of plot convenience, and even though that's the point of it, I couldn't get over it. Like, when things would just like fall into place, I couldn't get over that. It was just too convenient for me to really like buy into the gimmick of this book. Also, the romance, it was cute at times, but I also didn't buy into that because like they have basically like 12 hours to fall in love, and I'm like, dude, I'm not one who's like that privy to love. Like, I don't really care much for love, but 12 hours is just unbelievable. I don't think so. Also, like, 12 hours to fall in love with a random dude you just met on the street. Again, it's too unrealistic for me to really buy into. It made me feel like I had no emotions because yes, there was happy and sad things happening, but I didn't feel any type of way. Like, when she was getting deported, which is a sad moment, I wasn't crying. I didn't feel sad. I could register it was sad, but I just didn't feel anything because I wasn't connected to anything in this book. I understand why this story is important, and I do think it is an important story for like representation. Also, just like a conversation on like deportation of people who live in a country their whole entire lives. But I just like, it didn't catch me in my feels, and I think that's what I was trying to do, but it just didn't do that for me. So it was like, it was fine, but it just wasn't it. I'm trying to like talk less about books now because I've been filming for 40 minutes and we're not even done, so I'm stressed. The next book I read was Just in Case, a male, female, bisexual romance by Roxanne Riley. That's the whole title, by the way. I didn't realize this when I started reading it, but this is a quarantine threesome porn book, so if that's what you're in the market for, if you want like coronavirus porn, this is it. This book follows Felicity, Raoul, and Sam. Was his name Sam? Yes, it's Sam. Both those 3, and basically Felicity lives with Raoul because she was his maid, but then she loses her job, and then Raoul's knee-jerk response is to let her live with him. I don't know, but they do. And Sam is Raoul's best friend from his past, and he comes to go live with Raoul for a bit. Not live with him, but like stay with him and like go on a little vacation to hang out with him. And then suddenly coronavirus sweeps in, and they are on social distancing lockdown all together in this house, and they get up to some freaky things. My main complaint, I gave this 2 stars, by the way. Like, the porn was fine, it was hot, it was sexy, that's great. But realism, my friends, realism. This book basically starts, and we kept mentioning every once in a while that there was like a virus going on in Europe, and I was like, okay. And then one day Sam shows up, and like 2 days later he's still at their house, and then one day they wake up and suddenly it's a pandemic and they have to be on lockdown. And it doesn't make sense to me why this would be so like unrealistic and kind of stupid, because this author is living through this right now and was writing it, like, it was published on the 8th of April. So the author should be able to realistically portray that it was like a process, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like one day it was an epidemic and like one day you wake up it's a pandemic and you can't leave your house. That's not how it progressed, and like the author's living through it right now, so I don't understand why that was like such a unrealistic jump to pandemic land. Also, there were some like kind of fetishy comments in this book. Our female character like kind of mentions in her like inner monologue sometimes, she's like, I just love watching men kiss. Like, it gets me so turned on to watch like guys like touching each other, you know? And I was just like, I don't it kind of gave me the same vibes as like straight dudes wanting to watch like lesbians kiss. You know, it just gave me the same, like, gross vibes. So, didn't love that. So, 2 out of 5 stars. The porn was fine, but the rest of it wasn't strong. The next book I read was Catwoman, Soulstealer by Sarah J. Maas. I rated this 4 stars. And let's get into a description. So, this book follows Selena Kyle, who went to assassin school for 2 years and is back in Gotham City and is ready to burn the rich and take down the bad social systems or social hierarchies that are in place in Gotham. And we also follow the POV of Luke Fox, who is Batwing, and he's a bumbling idiot, but that's irrelevant. He's trying to protect Gotham City from, you know, the bad people. And then Catwoman forms like these friendships with Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. It's really fun. There's some romance kind of elements. I don't really know a description of this book. I never read the description, and the description is like long and I don't want to summarize that. But I gave this 4 stars and I liked it. Selena's character, though, I really, really liked. And my favorite part about this, and the reason I really gave this 4 to 5 stars, is the girl gang aspect of this book. Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and Catwoman as a girl gang. These 3 sexy, villainous, strong, powerful women, like, loved it. It was amazing, that element of this book. But, like, I'll mention things I don't like. 1, the ending was very anticlimactic. Like, also kind of a cop-out in a sense. Like, when characters die, I expect them to, like, actually die. I get that sometimes there's reason for characters to come back to life, but when you've already told me explicitly, like, oh, this character can come back to life because of this, and then you just completely bypass that and they come back to life anyway, it's like, okay, that's kind of bullshit, but okay. And also, there was kind of this I'm not like other girls vibe. I don't know if, like, anybody else feels this way, but, like, when you read things or watch things where it's like, oh, this guy has had every woman swoon for him his whole life, and then suddenly this one woman doesn't, and she is the one he falls for, like, that gives me the vibe of the I'm not like other girls trope. Basically, it's like, oh, I don't swoon for you, I'm not like those girls, like, I'm different. Like, it gives me that vibe, and I don't like that, and that was kind of the basis of this romance, or the romance in this book, so I did not love that. That kind of just put me off of their romantic tension. Also, the tension, like, kind of bobs in and out every once in a while. Like, there'll be tension, and then the next time we see each other, there's no tension, and it's just very kind of strange for me. It was very inconsistent, I think, the romantic element, because it would come in when it was convenient to have the romance. So, I don't know if those thoughts were that, like, good, because my thoughts are kind of jumbled now. I've been talking about books for too long. So, I feel like bad because this is going downhill so quickly. Like, I think that next time, if I read like this many books in a month again, I'm gonna have to split this into 2 parts because this is not fun. The next book I read, I've got 2 more to talk about, is Theirs for the Night by Katie Robert. This was the group book for Smuttathon. I did not participate in Smuttathon, but the book was free and I was like, I might as well read it. This is again a male-male-female menage romance thing. And I gave this 3 out of 5 stars? 3.5 stars? I don't know. It was hot, and I'm going to be continuing the series when I feel like it, because I'm curious to see what's going on, because it's smut with a plot. At the end, it kind of like jumps in and actually has like actual plot shit going on, so I want to know what's going on. Basically, this book follows Meg, and on her birthday, she goes clubbing, even though she's a poor bitch who's, like, kind of salty about being poor. She's like, I shouldn't go clubbing, I shouldn't have fun because I'm poor, but then she does. And she catches the attention of these 2 dudes, and she goes back to their apartment and has sex, and it's supposed to be, like, a one-night thing, but, like, it's not gonna be a one-night thing, and, yeah. The sex was fine. Nothing about this stood out to be more than a 3-star, but the actual, like, the plot twist at the end, which I should have probably seen coming, maybe it was in the description, again, I don't really read descriptions anymore, Maybe I should have seen it coming, but it was kind of interesting to me, and I'm curious to see where it goes. Because it has nothing to do with the smut. It's like this one character's like occupation slash like background is revealed, and I'm interested to see what's going on with that. Also, the series is called Thalian Dynasty, so maybe I should have actually thought of that before I go into the series. Maybe it's not like a plot twist. Maybe I'm stupid. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. You know what? The porn was fine. It's free porn. If you want to read it, it's free right now on Amazon. That's all I got for you. I'm losing my mind here. The last book I read was Loki's Wolves by K.L. Armstrong and Melissa Marr. This is a reread. This is a middle grade urban fantasy thing. It deals a lot with Norse mythology. Our main characters are Matt, Fenn, and Lori. Matt is the descendant of Thor. Fenn and Lori are both descendants of Loki, and these kids have been chosen to represent their deceased god ancestors in Ragnarok. This is a trilogy. I reread this book because I wanted to complete the series finally, because I never completed it before, and I gave this 3 to 5 stars. I enjoy this book a lot, but there's something that really bothered me about it. Constantly throughout this book, the male character saying they have to protect our female main character. We have to protect her. She can't come. She can't fight. And then like they're subconsciously thinking that like any male character is worth more than a female one when it comes to fighting, even though some of these male characters are not fighters. They don't have fighting personalities, and it really bothered me. And I kind of understand that it's shoved down your throats in this book to show their character development in the later books, I'm assuming, because there is more character development toward the end. Like Matt's like, oh my god, maybe Lori can fight, maybe she can hold her own. So I get that it's trying to show character development, but it's so annoying to read constantly throughout the book until like the last 50 pages, like that these characters are super sexist. It just bothered me a lot because like Lori is the only smart character in this book that doesn't like act rashly. So when it's like reminds me of Harry Potter, where like people shit on Hermione, but she's the only smart character, and without her they like wouldn't survive anything. So it reminded me of that in the sense that it's like she's doing the most for y'all, so maybe stop being a bitch. But other than that, it was good. I really like the vibe. Like I never read Percy Jackson, but I imagine like it's the same sort of vibes where it's like godly parents, that sort of stuff, going on quests. The transitions in this book are very quick. Like somebody will tell us we have to go to here, and then suddenly in the next sentence they're at that place. So it's not that smooth transition wise, but it wasn't that much of a problem, but it was kind of noticeable sometimes, especially listening to the audiobook. You'd be like listening and they'd be talking to someone, and then 2 seconds later they're at the place where that person told them they had to go. So it was a little bit jarring. I'm done talking. It was a 3 or 5 stars. It was fine. God, okay, so if I don't know if this is gonna continue on, like me being on this reading streak of reading a lot of books in a month, but like I think if I read like 10 books, 8 to 10 books in a month, splitting up a wrap-up into 2 is probably the best way to go, because this was not fun, and my descriptions and my thoughts on the last few books was like actual trash, so sorry about that. That's been my wrap-up. But yeah, it was really weird because this is the most I've ever read in a month, but I didn't love any of the books I read this month, which is kind of annoying. I would expect when you read like 14 books to like give at least 1 5 stars, but not a single one really did it for me. None of them hit the spot, but you know, you win some, you lose some. That has been my wrap-up. That was painful. I'm sweating, and I'm gonna go. This is 50 minutes of footage. Damn. Editing this is gonna be a bitch. Great. I've been Bailey. Bye.